Hi, my name is Rhiannon, but my friends call me Rhiannon, so you can call me Rhiannon. And this is Koala. She'll be hanging out for the video. So this week in Sociology of Adolescence, we talked about youth spaces. In the first reading, Fast Food Kids, French Fries, Lunch Lines, and Social Ties by Amy Best, we talked about the cafeteria. It's a liminal space that bends the social rule at school, which is all about learning, but instead the cafeteria is a social space for youth. The cafeteria allows for more students to get out of the context of learning and interact with more freedom. Food, not books, serves to define this school setting, is how Amy Best describes it. There is an expression of social norms, like for example, the elements of the gendered scripts of feminine sacrifice and servitude Amy Best sees, especially when, let's say, a female student gives some food to a male student. There's also segmented integration. The people of different races may distinguish where they sit. They might have distinguished friend groups. This can also be a space for social capital. For example, for class, kids who bring food from home or maybe bring something special, or they can get the most food. It also shows how some kids have clout, like how many friends they have, how many people want to sit with them, what kind of influence do they have. There are also the high achievement kids. They typically keep a distance from the rest of the group, or as Amy Best says, express their collective disinvestment and disinterest in the cafeteria space as social space, separated from rowdiness. And you can see in the show Boy Meets World where Minkus usually does sit away from the boys, especially when the boys are acting kind of crazy, like when they're starting a food fight or when they're playing with water guns. Reading 2 was Sports in Kids World by Michela, Musto. They talked about the pool and how there's a different salience of gender, which is how aware of gender adolescents are in a situation or setting, or how relevant gender is to the context for them. So in the pool, there's not so much salience in gender because they just want to be each other's times. It's not about whether you're a girl or a boy, because girls are equal competitors. They can actually sometimes be faster than the boys. This refers to hegemonic meanings, which are negotiated and contested within group-based interaction, according to the author. In these different situations, there's a different sense of hierarchy, and when there is hegemonic meaning, means that there is a sense of domination from the men. But during their free time, there is more salience of gender. So whereas they're competitors when they're in the pool, outside of the pool, when they're just hanging out and they're just friends, the boys and the girls typically separate from each other. It's actually because they find each other to be gross or weird at that age. In fact, you can see that in Boy Meets World as well, where Corey thinks Topanga is just a weird girl that he goes to school with, but they actually end up together in the show. So you'll see the boys and the girls tease each other or even maybe bully each other a bit, but it's a little bit different because in these age groups, the girls might be willing to stand up a bit more for themselves, or maybe it's the context where sometimes they are seen as equals, so they feel a lot more confident. Girls seem confident in their ability to interact as equals, according to the author. In the last reading, we talked about how there is different sexual or gender-based idea of kids, especially in different kinds of school settings. The reading was Nice is Not Enough, Inequality and the Limits of Kindness at American High by C.J. Pascoe. So we started that chapter out talking about the powder puff football games, which we call gender reversal, when women are in the setting where men typically are, or vice versa. We also talked about the idea of benevolent sexism, which is a type of sexism that involves both praising and patronizing women for traditionally feminine traits like kindness, domestic labor, or attention to appearance. Another thing we talked about in this chapter was the framing of consent. When you're taught how to tell someone no, you'll get tons of different examples, but it's hard to talk about how to tell someone yes. A lot of kids don't know what that looks like. Unfortunately, a lot of the times, even if a girl wants to say no, she might worry that she is being mean or she's going to hurt the guy's feelings. So women are taught to be nice. And if we react some type of way, like we are uncomfortable, we might be accused of being overdramatic. And you don't know if in that situation your safety is at risk, or if even maybe your social reputation at risk. Because the way a man could react to being rejected. And there's also sometimes a power dynamic in these situations, like in Boy Meets World. Topanga's professor in college comes into her dorm room and makes an advance, and she doesn't know how to respond to it because he's a teacher. And so if she does respond badly, what does that mean for her and her grades, which are really important to her? In this reading, we also talked about the concept of the bystander effect. Usually, it's talking about, in these situations, the men who watch women be subjected to treatment from other men. And it's safer for them to step back, at least socially, because boys can face retaliation. You do have to recognize that in these situations, the retaliation girls can, face is significantly more harmful. And it's also coming from that systemic hegemonic culture. One student in this study said, what you don't do has as much of an impact on the situations as what you do. Another concept we talked about was girl boss feminism, which is like when women have to just live their best lives and they can't let it get them down because it's just the way things are. Usually feminism is talking about how we can advance women's rights. Thank you for watching.